Hi everyone. I'm jumping on once again. I'm on a roll this week. Apparently, I have a lot that wants to come through, and I think it's an accumulation of lessons, of previous lessons. Everything culminates, and then we get to these like fruition points, and we just pop out, all the knowledge that has been building up. This one in particular is a little different. I feel like recording this way without video is really just allows things to flow, especially because I could do it early in the morning when the energy is ripe. And it also just feels good for what I need to be creatively kind of expressing these days. So, the energy that has been building up. I saw the basket in the sky yesterday. For those that don't follow astrology, there's a basket that is forming in the sky, or that has formed in the sky with the outer planets, that is creating this sort of cradle for big, drastic, both gentle and also potent movement within our psyches as that energy channels into us. And so we're going to be navigating, I feel, some really powerful and potent energies from now until the end of August. And part of, this work that I've been doing, I have been digging into my family bloodlines. The work of getting to know thyself is a huge part of being able to navigate the world properly, right? The more we know about ourselves, the more we can clearly discern what's ours, what isn't. And so a lot of the mental kind of realm gets cleared up because our ideas, who we are, belief systems aren't enmeshed with the extension of everything else coming in from around us. We can really feel the difference between who we are fundamentally and what is, what we're being imposed with, influenced by. And so a lot of the work of digging into my family lines has been tremendous over the years. We have a lot of different energies from our ancestors, right? Because if you look on the paternal side or the maternal side, you have two parents on either side, and those individuals have two parents. And so you're dealing with two family names for the mother, two family names for the father on the paternal side, and two family names for the mother and two family names for the father on the maternal side. And so, just as life, everything is complex, becomes more and more complex. The more you look at things with a microscope, so does doing the research into the family lines. Because then each of those individuals, the maternal side, the mother, for example, her two parents, and then they both had two parents. And so, at one point, you can only go so far with the genealogy tree because we only have records dating back so far. My grandfather and my grandmother did that work on my paternal side, and that information got passed on to me, and I was able to work with the material that was given to me to then go a bit deeper. But what I've come to understand, and the reason why I like astrology and looking at these systems so much, doesn't matter what system it is, they're always pointing to a larger pattern and a more accurate truth of who that person is, including numerology. Any sort of system, natural system, governing this realm carries a tremendous amount of information within that one little scope of knowledge that it provides. And so, over time, I've realized that all of these systems are all pointing to the same thing. And then when I did the work into my family lines, my ancestors, they point to the same things, right? So over the course of doing this work for the last decade, things just confirm and deepen the confirmations. And so then you get this really clear picture where, it's undeniable that this is part of who I am, part of my essence. And that allows for a deeper kind of sinking into the self, and truly allowing that soul essence to take up more and more space within your being, creating wholeness, right? Where there's less fractures within that etheric shell around you, that would allow other things to come in and co-opt your energy and who you are. And so those confirmations become clearer and clearer, and they also provide challenges. Not everything, all the information that we're encountering is positive. That's when there's stuff we have to work through from, our ancestors, kinks within our astrological chart that we are overcoming. And so everybody on this planet has a little bit of both, but it's the knowledge that allows us to navigate and clear up different things, close out contracts, and embody more of our soul essence. So part of the work that I do with alchemy, and also the depth, the depths that I move within have really been confirmed recently, on my mother's father's side, paternal side. His mother, was McManus, and McManus translates to Magnus, right? And then we get into the magnum opus, and that has everything to do with alchemy. And then on her paternal side, you have Wal, which is Vale, which is also Walsh. Some of it was translated from Walsh, but it was essentially the protectors of the wall. So I don't know if any of you have watched Game of Thrones. I actually got into that recently, and you had those in the far north. You had the protectors at the wall. So essentially, that family line taps into that energy. They were the ones first line of defense, protecting the wall from incoming enemy, any psychic forces that were trying to penetrate that location, that geographical location. So it moves from all the psychic realms down into the physical, where you have physical attacks. And so that whole side of the family, everyone on that side of the family is psychic. If you're listening to this, you know what I'm talking about. But the psychic orientation was always geared towards protection. So that's one of the gifts that we've been given, and it's also partly why we've been targeted so much. And with that gift comes foresight, right? Because a huge part of protecting anything, requires a certain amount of foresight, whether it's through using the logical mind and strategizing, understanding the strategy of the enemy, understanding the strategy of whatever it is that's incoming from a logical perspective, to then be able to future forecast what their approach is going to be, what their strategy is going to be for takeover, or simply on a psychic level, right? Gaining that intuition and that instinct to kind of feel when the energy shifts. And so that has been a huge part of who I am, and delving into human design and gene keys, our two other systems, really confirm that energy. When it came to the spheres and the gates, where it was about that psychic penetrating intuitive insight, it always boiled down to like a line that governed foresight and protection and prediction in general. So I've been working with that energy, and I don't, not really into offensive, offensive battle, whether it's spiritual battle or psychic battle, right, or physical. The strategy for me isn't offensive. I'm actually extremely maternal. The strategy for me is always protection. And so the protection can extend quite far when I went through my awakening, a huge portion of that time was just these downloads, these forecasting, right? This psychic forecasting of what was occurring in the collective, forecasting events that were going to take place in, the question of 5-10 years, or 2 months, 2 years. And I kind of felt like, I'm getting all this information, but I don't really know how to use it. It's really difficult to use this stuff, but I know there are governing bodies, and we can get into all the 3-letter agencies that really use, groups of people, especially through online social media, to work their forecasting machines. And that's partially why I got out of social media, because I didn't want to be a part of those hive minds, those machines that really skillfully use energy dynamics and group dynamics to push different forecasting to the forefront. But nonetheless, we want to be sovereign, and we want to use what we've been given to the advantage of ourselves and our loved ones and society. And so I think people are trying to find ways of navigating as they're awakening, as these gifts come online, in a positive way that is aiding their collective, right? Aiding their tribe, and aiding, humanity as a whole to up level in consciousness and make the right decisions at the right times. So part of the energy and the theme that I feel has been really coming on strong with this basket that's being created in the sky for July and August is the female principle, right, coming online. We have been in a great period where the masculine energy has been the prominent energetic force, sort of making the decisions on this planet. And I can go into a whole audio about why the feminine energy has been suppressed, but basically this information is coming from the belly of the whale, and the belly of the whale is essentially that creative impulse. It is the Tiamat. It is the Kali, the destructive and creative force of the planet. And so when I was personally tapping into that energy and felt the sheer power of it come alive, I went through cycles where that's a chaotic energy that can just totally consume you. It can consume anyone, right? It was consuming me. And as I went through that process, I realized the power of the masculine. Like, I had to really dip into all of my feminine energy, which is also in my chart. There's, this again has been confirmed. The type of, creative access I have is tremendous. And I realize that. That's why I'm so careful with it, because it is ultimately both powerful and both, positive and both destructive, if not kept in a healthy if you don't keep a healthy relationship with it and understand really how to work with that energy. It can just channel through your whole body and burn you up, right? It's like Kundalini fire. It's when you watch it go rampant in society, it's just like it burns the whole house down. So this is partly why we have this huge lopsidedness, between the East and the West, where the East really tries to suppress that feminine energy and keep it under control. And of course, that shows up literally in the physical world with the suppression or the oppression of women. But really what they're trying to, misappropriate, but what they're trying to maintain control of is that feminine force, which exists within men. We all have the masculine and feminine, but in women, there's the axis is greater. It's easier. It can it can really flow through faster because women are women and they're tapped into that feminine energy as their primary source, and men are trapped. I didn't mean to say trapped, but tapped into that masculine energy as their primary source, like how we navigate through the world, and coming into balance is all these practices that we do. Um, if you're hanging out with masculines that are in that pure logical state, that feminine energy just completely drops. Like if I'm in my feminine energy and I just feel really chaotic and like, the energy gets dizzy, there's just so much channeling through, I will just go hang out with a masculine who's super dry and logical. And I'm like, I can relax because it balances the energy out. But, essentially we want to balance the energy out within ourselves so that, we can educate the generations to come on how to balance those energies within, so that we don't see these drastic, events playing out on the globe where men are trying to suppress women, or trying to, literalize keeping that energy under check, when really it's something that, people need to do from within themselves. And the more women know how to navigate and move, have that integrity, and know that when that energy is flowing in, know what to do so that it doesn't overcome them and overtake them and subsume them, and then create like a lot of chaos in the field, then we'll see less and less of that oppression or suppression happening without. So I think everything, on the outside is just pointing to something deeper that's trying to balance itself out from within every individual on the planet. And, the interesting thing is that when men totally embody that feminine energy, like that's where, they can get subsumed by it way quicker because their systems are masculine. They're not meant to really be in that chaotic energy, whereas women can flow in the chaotic creative energy a lot smoother because it's part of their physical nature. So that was a little offshoot, but as what I feel this cradle in the sky, this basket in the sky is doing, is it's really going to be bringing that feminine energy forward. We've been in a phase of masculine energy, even to the point of seeing women become overly masculine. And, one of the cosmic principles is like the pendulum will swing to one end, and when it swings to one end, it has to swing to the other end, because there's always that law of compensation and the balance, right? Things are always balancing themselves out with this divine intelligence on these larger scales. And so the energy has been, even for me in my life, after I went through that experience, saw the value in the masculine, started learning from the masculine, started incorporating my own masculine energy, things came back to center. And I felt extremely grounded, more and more so since 2017. But in order to incorporate those lessons and that knowledge of the masculine principle, I had to dip really far to the creative feminine principle, and then to see how all that plays out for creative purposes, and also the destruction, right, when it's left unchecked. And so it's come back into balance for me. But I think as the collective society as a whole, it is actually now moving, the pendulum is now swinging to the other side, to this this feminine, it's like a volcano that's slowly been building and building and building, and that wants to erupt. And this is coming through, the movement of all these big, large outer planets, which govern massive aspects of our psyche, moving signs, moving houses, and then coming into synchronicity, creating, this design. I saw it in the sky. I saw it in the sky last night. It's just like this cradle to hold and create an alignment for them all to channel together to create a really big movement of all of them coming together. So that's what we're seeing right now, starting to build up. And this feminine energy, part of why I wanted to come on and talk about this is because I really feel like, you know, people can kind of lose it when the feminine principle awakens within, because it is so powerful and primordial. It's a force, like it is a tidal wave, right? We're talking about hurricane, tornado, earthquake, you know, tidal waves, tsunamis. Like that's the chaotic aspect of the feminine force on the planet, physically showing up, you know, within the environment. So when that comes on within us, it feels like a shift in consciousness, right? It's like when you're going about your day and then all of a sudden you feel this wave, this surge of energy and life force that comes through you. And that's why I got into all of this, you know, these discussions about our sexuality and stuff like that, because the life force is so, it is coupled with our sexuality is coupled with our life force energy. And so, you know, often it comes through as this surge of energy, and people aren't really able to distinguish between, you know, to channel that, right? Because if it doesn't get channeled properly, society just dictates that it wants you to channel it into, you know, directions of lust and, you know, more of the lower echelons of the sexual energy, of the sacral energy. But when we channel it into these higher realms, these higher nodes of energy within the body, it activates our consciousness, right? We have this in, excuse me, in all these different traditions. You know, you see the energy coming up the spine and then activating the pineal gland and then opening up that third eye, and all of a sudden we're perceiving things that we did not see previously, right? Because consciousness is really closely linked to perception. And once that perception opens up, you have a group of people that could see something in the field. And then you have another group of people that, you know, can't see it because their level of consciousness hasn't raised to the point where that pops open for them and they get to see different layers of the spectrum, different frequencies of the Hertz spectrum, you know. So people's auditory channels open up. They can hear more when that life force energy comes up and moves all the way up, right? Gets integrated properly through the different central nervous system axle points, right? And moves up into the brain. Then, you know, their auditory opens up, their sight opens up, their imagination, right? That third eye, where things are projecting out of, opens up, right? To create, when we change the way we see, the things we see change. And so all of a sudden people can start accessing different layers of information and a greater vision of how everything is so intricately connected within this world, right? Within you, within your environment, within the globe, right? Within all these spectrums of data within the field, right? That we're picking up on psychically and somatically and, you know, emotionally, mentally. And so this energy that's pumping through, I'm bringing it forward. This is like a forecast, but really what's going to be occurring is that energy, that feminine principle energy that's going to be building up in people, and it's starting to build up. A lot of people feel restless, they feel bored, because it is the calm before the storm. And so navigating through these next 2 months is going to be paramount for people, because when that energy activates, if the knowledge isn't out there to, you know, to help people, to advise people on how to navigate, there's nothing that, you know, you're just kind of going through this experience and it can get really chaotic, you know, especially people that have no spiritual knowledge of these natural spiritual initiations that take place on the planet. And so I'm putting this information out there because, navigating through it is going to be really key to use the creative force with purpose, with integrity, with intent, to create something positive, because we're all directing this energy. It's a co-creation. As within, as without. Yes, we can work on the individual principle of, creating those synchronicities and diving deeper into knowing thyself. But we are all co-creating together. And so everybody doing this together is what creates the whole of, the state of the world and what we see. And so navigating this will require using masculine principles in order to integrate everything properly, right? So eat, sleep, all the basics, exercise, spending time in nature is going to be huge, is going to be key, because when that energy is channeling through, you need to clear the mind. Barefoot walking is the best. Get those negative ions, circulating, and the breath. When things get intense and you feel that consciousness activate and you start feeling dizzy and like you're seeing more colors, you're hearing more things, everything just opens up. You return to the breath, the center, right? The circle, the focus, and you breathe. And as you breathe with intent and breathe slowly, you're allowing the mind to align, the emotions to align with that energy, with that rhythm, right? It's with the rhythm. And the rhythm that we're trying to create is one of ease, right? Because if that energy is so chaotic that when it's flowing through, it's just like boom, 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 boom. So the breath, slowing down the breath, brings the energy back down into the masculine principle of control, right? Controlled breath. And then that will just calm the extra sensory perception that's being ignited. And then also knowing that this is happening, you can channel it. It's like you can get prepared. You can understand that you're going to need to write more. You're going to need to spend more time in solitude, right? To integrate and assimilate and alchemize all of the stuff that is pushing up from these different parts of you, whatever blocks you have, energetic blocks, mental blocks, any rigidity, it's going to push that stuff up forward. And that's part of, the destructive process of it. But taking the time and being like, this is normal. If I'm going to elevate and I'm going to allow my consciousness to open up and blossom, then I have to also sit with these, negative, quote unquote, negative stuff that's coming up for me to fully integrate the lessons of, right? And so all of this, is coming back to, just go for a walk, spend time reflecting, spend time with people, right? Because you don't want to isolate. You want to go into solitude when it's time, but you don't want to isolate. So a really good remedy is like contacting, whatever friends you have that are open and that have gone through different experiences in their life that can hold space for that. Be like, I just need to hang and not be so serious and allow myself to just enjoy life, to laugh a little, bring the humor element into it, and just allow yourself to be in a good space, right? For that to be held, a good container for that to be held, so that you can then return to your life where you have to be practical. You have to maintain structure, right? Because you don't want to lose. Structure is key. It is key when this energy is pumping through. If you've already built the, routines and rituals in your life that promote health and that promote well-being, falling back into that structure, that schedule, when you have this energy pumping through is so key, because it's already there. It's a structure that's been built, and it promotes channeling that energy being transmuted and alchemized properly, and there's no thought involved. It's like if you've been driving for 10 years, 15 years, You know, you don't have to be worried about exactly what you're doing on a physical level when you're driving that vehicle. You're in automatic. So if you have the structure in place, the consistency, you can fall back onto that schedule, and those are your checkpoints. Boom, you know, at this time you're doing this, at this time you're doing this, at this time you're doing this. And then that provides the structure for all that other creative energy to pour through within the spaces in between. But you're always coming back to, and in the morning I walk, and, you know, and at this time I have this herbal tea, whatever, you know, to sustain the process and to help you thrive within the process. So, all this to say, I'm bringing this forward because I really obviously want the best for humanity. Like, you know, a lot of people I know, most people I know, in fact, you know, I'm not in contact with anybody who doesn't want the best for humanity. So this information is really to just give people a sort of heads up on the energies that are unfolding, what is arising, to not be afraid of it. There is going to be an expansion of consciousness. It is coming from the belly of the whale. It is coming from that creative primal force. And it's all positive, right? It is the natural cycle. It's the natural cycle for us to continue in evolving with our consciousness and evolving on this planet to create better and better systems and ways of living, where what we're co-creating together is actually, you know, creating the world we want to see and live in. And it takes that up-leveling of consciousness. There's no other way of going about it. So don't squander it. Use it wisely. And, you know, don't go and dip into the lower realms with it. Everything is a test. These tests are going to be coming on, and this energy is going to be pushing through. If you'd like to reach me, you could do so at inspiringplayfulevolution.com. I'm wishing you all a wonderful expansion within that basket and within that container that is being created and held for us to expand our awareness, heal, and, you know, thrive. Oh, I gotta go. So take care. Talk soon.